Welcome back to the Live Worthy podcast, where we urge and equip you to live a life worthy of the calling that you've received, for you have been called by God. I'm your host, Erin, and today joining me is a special guest to me. Isabelle Thomas is here. Yay. Yeah, it's so special to me, Isabelle, because we have a long history together of God just knitting our hearts to one another. And we speak very similar languages in terms of evangelism and compassion and heart for people. And I love seeing that in you. I am old enough to be your mother, though I am not your mother. I consider you like a spiritual daughter to me. And the Lord has just woven a path for us that's really remarkable when you look back. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but also we're going to hear from you and what the Lord is speaking to you about, and how he's taking you around the world to preach his gospel, and also here at home. Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So I want to get started. I know we've talked a little bit about who you are, but tell us, Isabelle, you're walking into the room, right? What are you bringing from heaven that prepares our listeners and viewers to know what to expect from you?
Yeah. You've asked me this before, and every time I have a different answer. But I think this week, because it changes so much, I think I bring a lot of passion for God's people, those that are lost, and on the fringe. I think every room I walk in, I try to see who's sitting alone or who doesn't have a friend. And I think God designed me to really seek those people out. I think I live in a tension of empathy for people, but also a desire to challenge them. So sometimes it's super fun to be around me, and sometimes you're going to walk away being like, okay, that was tough, but I'm glad she told me. So yeah. And I think, I guess a third thing is I love to get people to move out of their comfort zones. And, I think God does really cool things when we live live without comfort. So, yeah, I think I bring a lot of movement. So
you do. That is true. So we're going to be challenged today because you and I are going to team up on some of these places.
Let's get them.
Because I think we'll both, you're right. There's a place where you're like gentle with people, but also like, okay, it's time to get up and move now. You've laid down long enough. You're rested. So yeah, that movement, that encouragement, that invitation, and that challenge all comes together. And I think evangelists do that really well. In Scripture, they're used to wake people up to the truth and the calling of God, and to come into agreement with those things. So you do that really well, even at your age, which is young, but you have a mighty calling and a maturity about you that most don't have. So I'm going to give a little background because I think this is such a cool story. And then we'll talk a little bit about where those points intersected for you. So I'll say it from my perspective. How about?
Okay.
So what's interesting is that I grew up in the same house for 18 years.
Yes.
And that house was you lived in after we moved out.
Yeah, my nursery.
Yeah.
It's in your bedroom.
Which is so wild to me because we didn't know each other. But my parents were going back to check on the house and met your family. And your family invited them to their church, which is the church I'm now a pastor at. Yep. And now you also have come on to staff, which is just wild when God does that, right? So, but in the process of me knowing who I was and what God was calling me to, we started doing missions trips and all that stuff. And you were the youngest person we took on a missions trip to that point. Now we've had younger come, but to that point, you were the pioneer of young people going on mission trips.
Was like, why not me?
And I was like, I don't know.
All these older men were going, and I was like, I think this is a good spot for me to show up in.
And like you did, and you went as a person who was like, I don't cry.
Yeah. Liar. Sorry, I repent, Lord.
Yeah, you just came so brokenhearted for seeing what you saw in Haiti, and then that shifted quite a bit of your life. And we would joke as you were going through high school and in college, we would joke about, okay, Isabelle, come and take my job. And then last year you did.
Yeah. Yeah. You asked and I said, yes.
Yeah. Which is so crazy because I didn't say that knowing that it would happen quickly, but the power of our words, and it was really what God was ordaining. So you've come along and now we're in a new relationship. And so that's so cool. So tell us a little bit about what you studied in school and what that path has looked like from your side of things.
Yeah. So that first trip that we went on to Haiti, I said I was not a crier, and I was really like, I wanted to go into a job that made me money and I felt success in. Well, I was wrong. That changed my life and really was a catalyst for me getting interested in missions. And I always had a heart behind I want to serve, and any way that I can serve others, I will do it. I didn't know that was kind of going to look like my job at all, but I went to school for social work for my undergrad, and then I just got my master's in social work. And I love it because it is just kind of educating me on how to do missions. Maybe that's not what we were saying, but do missions and do outreach, but through this ethical lens, and how to do it with an understanding of mental health. And when things go beyond kind of the church resource, how can we come alongside those people and walk with them? So that was really, really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be a gap. And right, sometimes that place in between is a gap where I think a lot of people seek in the church, and some of that background a pastor may not have. And so to resource and come alongside them and teach and do that work really is beneficial and powerful.
Yeah. And during college, I was also able to go on a lot of mission trips and kind of build on ministries that around where I went to school. I partnered with jail ministries, and I am a part of Young Life, which is a high school kind of evangelistic ministry. And I got to go to mission trips, lead mission trips to Jamaica and England and around the United States. So it was super cool because I had so many opportunities to just grow and develop my heart for missions, which I didn't know really I was doing, but just kind of kept catching myself crying all the time about the people I was meeting, and while others came home and were like, that was a great trip, I came home and was like, this is what I think my life is supposed to look like and what the Lord's calling me to. So had definitely a perspective change, but it was a joy and a privilege to do those things as well. Yeah.
And at the same time, you were feeling that call to missions. It looked a little bit different than people who would say like a full-time missionary would be one that went overseas. You really felt like your heart was to be here in the U.S. serving at a church. Yeah. And equipping, like we talk about, the saints for the work of the ministry, to keep that forward. You know, sometimes missionaries leave and they go serve, and that's a beautiful ministry, and we send them, and I love that work. But the ones that are here need to be equipped to do that work here in their own community as well. And so you felt a real call to do that, to champion that call.
Yeah. And because I think so many people are kind of aching for an opportunity to serve and kind of finding what is right for them. And I think I've always had a heart to do that too, is help bring people with me to serve. And you can't always, not everyone has the accessibility to go to Africa or go to Haiti all the time, but meeting people in your neighborhood and going to Publix all the time. I always talk about how my favorite thing in the world to do is to go to Publix and talk to people for hours. If Erin asks, hey, what work have you done today? Not much. I was at Publix.
No, that is the much. That is the much that is needed.
It's ministry.
It is
under
ministry.
the umbrella for sure.
And every place that you go is like that. So, and I love, you talk about Young Life and some of their ideas, like concepts of how to do evangelism in a very realistic way for young people. So talk about what you've learned by ministering at Young Life.
Yeah. I have learned a lot. they're so relationally based. So even the people that lead and the people that serve through Young Life are just totally a family, which I have learned from just being hospitable. And I didn't grow up having a ton of people over all the time because we were so involved in the church, but I really found joy in having people come over to my house and just sit with them. So I've been able to do a lot of Bible studies with high school aged girls, and I think high schoolers are that tough population where people write them off a lot because they're emotional and difficult and yell back at their parents. But they're just so tender, and I think they're experiencing every feeling. And
sometimes
I think that's
all at once.
Yes, all at once. And I think that's such an avenue for Jesus to come in and find someone who's solid and consistent. And me wanting to show up and be a leader for them that's consistent, I think has changed the way that I approach evangelism too, because even on mission trips, you get those moments that are amazing, but you can't stay with them as much as I wish I could. But with Young Life, I've learned when you are doing local missions and local outreach and relational evangelism, you get to follow them home. I mean, they have to invite you, but don't go to their house and show up. But I get to do life with them. When I go to Target, I'm going to bring them to Target and talk to them about the Lord while we're shopping for shoes, you know? So many cool opportunities where they may not realize it, but I am intentional about how can I ask them about how their family's really doing and introduce Jesus as a solution to that. Has been really, really cool. So gotten to see a lot of fruit from that, have really, really cool conversations. I brought a girl to a camp over the summer. I had never met her, which is not common. We don't usually bring girls we've never met. But this year we brought her, and she was amazing. She was just so sweet and was willing to try everything. But when I asked her, like, have you gone to church before? Is this a total new experience learning about the Lord? She was like, my parents are totally atheists, and I enjoy science, and I want to approach things with a scientific mindset. And I think that's hard for an evangelist because I am learning about the Bible as much as everyone else is. I don't have all the answers. So I was very upfront about, I want to know the things that you care to learn about for sure, because maybe I don't have all the answers, but I want to learn this with you. And I think that was cool because I think people have always been set in their ways when talking to her, but I was able to kind of have discussion with her. And we went this week, and you could tell she was opening up and enjoying it. And then the last day of camp, I sat down with her and was like, okay, what's kind of your conclusion? You had this hypothesis of what Jesus was, and what are you kind of concluding that he is? And she was like, I don't know, I'm not ready yet. And I was like, okay, that's wonderful. I get to text you and call you when we get home. This relationship doesn't have to end here. But she began asking questions like, why do Christians not look like the Jesus we're talking about? And why does the church approach things sometimes where she sees hatred, you know? So we got to have really, really cool discussion on those things, those hard-hitting questions. And by the end of our 2 hours, I didn't say anything. I was like, well, it was, really nice to talk to you. And she said, wait 1 second. I think I'm ready. She's like, I think your willingness to just talk to me about the things that I had questions about, that I wasn't some person that was doubting everything that Jesus came to be, but just really, really wanted to know because she cares. And she is so wise and intelligent and wanted to learn all of these things. She gave her life to Christ, and she's been like experiencing this joy and fullness from Jesus, which has been so cool. So I get to follow up with her. We went to camp again with her this year, and she's just, oh my God. I mean, obviously there are things, her life is not perfect, but it's like a whole new person.
She's walking with the one who is perfect.
Yeah. So it's so cool. I love that story a lot.
I love that too. Because I think what you're pointing out is that the willingness, Jesus was willing to be in the midst of people's questions and not tie them up in a pretty package and And we often feel like we have to defend this Jesus that we love, right? As though nobody can say anything bad about him. And we, of course, don't want that. But when new believers are coming in, they're going to have all their questions and it's going to come right out.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I love about people that are new to faith is that everything is, it's like a child, you know, everything that they're thinking. And it's easy to figure out what to do with what they're thinking because it's not like sealed up.
Yeah.
You know, there's a place that as we go, sometimes we seal up because we're afraid to ask questions or what do I do with this doubt that I have or this fear that I have? I'm not supposed to have that as a believer. But when you're with new believers, you recognize like, oh, I'm just a little further along in the journey. And it causes you to be more honest in your own journey. Yeah. Which is what it did for you as well.
Well, it's hard to teach wonder.
Oh,
like
girl.
Awe of the Lord. But I think when you get to, you know, evangelize and have these like fresh conversations with new believers or people that are doubting, they're totally in awe of it because they've never heard it before and never heard of. Not many gods of the universe are so compassionate and loving towards the things they created, you know. I think that's totally countercultural even now with inclusion and all these things of we want to include and we want people to feel welcomed everywhere. I think like radical love is still not common, so that's really
uncommon. You're right.
Really cool.
It's so cool. Yeah. And one of the things we do get awestruck by, you and I, is like what other God? We'll often say like, what kind of God? What other God? Yeah. Who else, you know, could do that? Who else but our God? Speaking of wonder, this and we're going to tell a lot of stories today, but this little girl in church not too long ago here on an Easter Sunday, they were telling the story of Jesus. Have you heard about this one? The story that I told you? Okay. So this little girl is like I think visiting on Easter Sunday, and they're going through the story of Jesus dying on the cross. Yeah. And they get to this like culminating point of him being resurrected as they're telling the story of Jesus, and she had never heard this story before. And so talk about wonder and awe. She's like on the edge of her seat and she goes, oh, he came back to life. And she was just like overwhelmed at the story. And I think when we lose that over time, if we're not, you know, continuously in front of new believers that remind us like, this is a brand new story still. He's still alive. Yeah.
I often walk away from conversations with people that don't know Jesus, loving him more and seeing him like another glimpse of his love for me, because I'm going through John 3:16, which I've heard since I was in the womb. Yeah. But now I'm getting to introduce that verse to others, and it's like, wow.
For the first time.
He did love the world. It's crazy. And then I'm crying again. And then I'm
totally.
Crying again.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, so give us a little bit more. As an evangelist, you have this way of seeing and seeking out those people. Talk to us about that process of seeing and seeking out those who might be lost.
Yeah.
How do you notice them?
Yeah. I think I have asked the Lord for a lot of grace to do that continually, because sometimes it's hard to. It's easy to go in a room and sit with your friends and the people you know. It's easy to do that. But everyone knows Matthew 28, the Great Commission is to go out, make disciples of all nations. So reading that as a teenager, I was like, okay, that is my job. And you have taught me this too, when people are saying, okay, do I go up to that person at Publix? Or I don't know if Jesus is saying that this is the right time to go up to those people. But God already said yes. He already said go. And he already said make disciples. So I think that yes covers. I think there are definitely times where it's maybe not now. You never want to force people into the love of Jesus. That's not how it works. But I also grew up seeing, you see, drive by people on the side of the street yelling about, Jesus. And I was always so uncomfortable with that and hurt for that. I think I felt a lot of empathy for those who didn't know Jesus. And I was like, this isn't it. This isn't what he's called us to do. But I have found really sitting with people in whatever kind of mess that they feel they're in has changed things. I've heard so many people's stories and I get their perspective, and it's like, I don't know if I would know Jesus either yet if I had gone through what you had gone through. So I think when you are constantly sitting with people, you gain such empathy and such compassion for them. So I think you just have to do it. I think it's almost like practice of sitting with those different from you and really seeking out, okay, maybe I don't understand them and I have this hardened heart towards them, but how can I change that? Sitting with the people that frustrate me, I think, because it's just hard to be frustrated with people that because you have this perspective of them and what they're going through, and it's just so much easier to give them grace and to love them. And I also 1 Thessalonians 2:8 is this verse that I have found as this wild evangelist that I love, because it says, we've shared, Paul's writing, and he says, we shared not only the gospel of God with you, but also our lives, which is like, big sacrificial. He shared his life with them. It's like, no, we share our lives together, getting to sit next to each other all the time and getting to learn from you and hear from you. But it's so simple. And I think that's so the heart of Jesus, of like, we got to share the gospel, but we also got to share our lives. And like, we were created for community, and something in our soul aches for that. And people are like wanting belonging and community. So I think if you meet almost that need, I can't help but talk about Jesus when I sit with them. So it comes so naturally. So evangelism can feel big and heavy and difficult. But when you're sitting across from people all the time that you love, that you already spend time with, it just honestly just happens naturally, where you'll say, oh, this is what I learned at church this week, or this is what I feel like the Lord's telling me. And this person will be like, you know what? Because I trust you, because I know you, and because you've shown interest and intent with me, I want to learn too. I want to listen. Because it's so much easier to share the joy of Jesus with your friends. So I found that, I found that to be the easiest with people that, sorry, I have another story.
Tell me.
I mentioned earlier that I have been able to go into juvenile detention centers, which at first I told my parents. I always have to tell my parents about these things, and I always tell them, I am doing this.
But I want you to know.
But I just want you to know. So forgiveness, not permission.
Girl, I'm 40-something years old, and I still tell my mom, and she's still like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But thanks for telling me I know how to pray.
Going on another trip. Sorry.
Going into the darkest corners of our...
to pray. Yes. I'm just giving you opportunities to connect with the Lord again. Yes, here is another faith journey for you. I'm going out again. So I was going with a group from my school to working with the Verb Kind, which is a really, really great ministry, but going into juvenile detention centers and really doing, like I said, just sitting with incarcerated youth. So I went to, there are kind of two sides in detention centers, where one with boys and one with girls. So I think the age range is like 12 to 18, and we went in there. And I am, again, like I said, empathy and challenge. You got to live in the tension of that. So I told my group, I was like, we're just going to go in there, and it's going to be awesome. I'll protect you,
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was going to look like.
With your fierce wit.
Yes. I was like, guys, I think I can make these people laugh. So we got this. I went in there, and all these teenage girls are glaring at us. There's about 12 of them. And I was like, so somebody drop a beat. Let's start a rap. Boop, boop. And they loved it. I was terrified. I was like, this is either going to go horrible or really awesome. And it went great. And then I started having conversation with these girls, and they are just teenage girls.
Did they love it because it was funny, or did they love it
because
they laughed
at me? They're like, this is the craziest. Oh, I'm not good at rapping.
Well, I was wondering if...
Yeah, I have a secret talent you haven't seen yet. No. They were like, you're horrible.
You were
Thank
vulnerable.
you for being weird.
Yeah, being weird.
So, because it's just an uncomfortable thing. I mean, they're in these sweat sets that like they've been given that they have to wear. So, and I got to wear whatever I wanted that day.
Yeah.
I woke up with choice, and I think I know what I represent when I go into a room like that. I am a tall white woman. So knowing like what I bring anyway, without even me saying anything, is something that I've learned a lot of. Like, okay, what am I showing up as? Even though that's not maybe who I am, what are they seeing?
Perceiving.
Like, what's their reality of this? And then that has changed how I show up for sure. Because I want to be weird and uncomfortable first. So they feel like they can be too. But that day was just one of my favorites because they were just girls. They were like, what Taylor Swift song is out right now? And what TV shows have you watched lately? And what boys do you think are cute? You know, it's like these conversations of like, you're a girl and I'm a girl. We were just dealt such different cards. But then also the testimony of like, I also think that I get to experience such joy and get to come visit you because I love Jesus so much too. And that is really, really why I do this. So I had such wonderful conversations and got to introduce Jesus. So I love doing that.
Yeah, I love anytime we can come from a place of where we are seated, become vulnerable and share with one another. That really is the picture of Jesus. So I love your stories, and it is sometimes deeply relational. You get to sit with somebody for a long time, and sometimes, like in this environment, you get to sit with them for an hour, maybe a month.
Yeah.
And that's all you get. You don't get to exchange phone numbers or invite them over to your house or, you know, time and decision don't allow that so much. But, you know, when we talk about evangelism, there are deeply relational there's deeply relational evangelism that's over time with your neighbors and people that you live next to and your friends. And you might be walking with them for years and years. And then you have these moments, these intersections with somebody at Publix or, you know, somebody that's in a program like that or whatever, that you just get a moment. And it reminds me of that story in Acts with the Ethiopian eunuch who's reading something, and in that moment it just so happens right that Philip is walking by and then he sees him studying and wanting to know more, and in that moment he's able just to ask a question to lead into deeper truth, and that moment leads to baptism and salvation for this, you know, interested person. But had he not been paying attention to his assignment, he would have missed this opportunity for this other person to be baptized and known. So I love that you were talking about asking for the grace to see people the way that Jesus sees them, to grow in compassion. I think that's a prayer that any of us all of us who are called to do the work of an evangelist, any of us can pray that prayer. To just receive the grace and eyes of compassion to see the need before us, to see the person who is one question, one invitation away from knowing Jesus. And you have eyes to see that. I love talking to you. We could talk stories forever. I want to ask how, since we're ending our time together, how do you want to specifically encourage the saints to live worthy today?
Big question. I think I had this, oh my gosh, I'm going to be really quick. I had this dream while we were doing the Worthy Conference of this woman sitting in a jail cell and reaching her hand out of this cell. And she was just saying, it's unreachable. It's unreachable. This key to getting out of, you know, this cell that I'm in. And this man was standing by the door, and it was open, and he was like, you just have to walk out. It's available. So I think a lot of times we see living worthy as unreachable. But I think Jesus's feet is always available. And there's always this open invitation that never, ever, ever closes, an opportunity to sit at his feet. So I think that will
That's it.
Help you live worthy. Yeah,
That's it.
that's what I've learned.
That's a great encouragement to us. Yeah. Ours is a faith of walking out and practice. So practice living worthy today. Ask for Jesus's feet. I love that. Thank you, Isabelle, for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on the Live Worthy podcast.